Kia ora and hello, friends. Matthew Dawson here, and I'm very pleased to welcome you back to the Restoring Connections podcast. I hope that you're going well. But if you're going through something hard with one of your close relationships, which if you're a human being on planet Earth, which I'm thinking you probably are, there's a good chance that there's something going down, you know? If your heart is alive and you are walking with people, at least making an attempt at doing life with people, with family, with friends, with coworkers, there's a good chance that the battle is on in some way or not. And hey, if not, if you've got absolute peace and calm across your entire existence, all your relationships, well, I'd love to hear your podcast. How do you do it? Yeah, we love to dive into those 4 core areas of personal responsibility, proactive care, powerful communication, and healthy boundaries. In our experience, these are the things that really we got to have cranking on full blast in our lives for our relationships to go really well, and for our, the most important relationships in our life to be able to actually deepen and strengthen through the difficult times, because that's what this is all about. It's all about those relationships, because not all relationships are equal. It's all about we're focusing in here on those core relationships, the ones that you want to last through your entire life and get better and better and better. And obviously you can't do that with everyone. You got to choose who are the most important people in your life, who that are worthy of that level of high end investment, and that, because those are the relationships. The only way they're going to last through the end is if those tough times that come actually you end up responding to those difficult times in such a way, hopefully together, because you can't control the other person, you can only control yourself. But you can at least do your bit on your half of the relationship to respond to those difficult situations in such a way as to create the opportunity for the relationship to actually get deeper, for trust to actually grow. So we are doing another 2-parter here. I love my little 2-part series. As you can see, if you're watching, I'm all by my lonesome today. Don't have Cora with me. Don't have any special friends. It's just me, and that's quite all right. We're kind of the team is back up and running, and we got lots of stuff going on in lots of different directions, and so we just decided together I'd fly solo. On that note, shout out to all the crew that are involved in helping to put this podcast together. Jenny, my cousin, and Mike and Nate. Love you guys. Thank you so much for all of your help. Certainly couldn't do it without you. And Rachel and Michelle, all the whole team. We just feel so incredibly blessed, so fortunate to be surrounded by such awesome people. All right, so we are diving into this topic. The question we are wrestling with is, what do I do with all this pain? Because stuff goes down in your close relationships that can just feel unbearable, and really, it's in those moments. For me personally, obviously not. We're all different, and so I like to share from my own experiences, and you just sort of take what you can from that, and then kind of figure out, well, that applies to me, that doesn't apply at all, and that's all good. But I'm hoping to sort of spark thoughts as I share about how I'm wired. I'm hoping to spark thoughts in you that get you thinking about how you're wired. What are your typical go-tos when you're in pain? What do you typically do? What kind of situations cause that level of pain in you? And of your go-to responses, my encouragement to you, my hope for you is that you're able to have a good, hard look at them and go, yeah, this is what I typically do when I'm in a lot of pain. This thing here, yeah, that is healthy, actually. That's good. I when I'm in pain, I tend to do this, and it's actually helpful. And this other thing I do here, yeah, that just, like, it helps me in the moment, but obliterates my relationships, but it damages, like traumatizes my close connections. And so, yeah, maybe I want to put that tool down. Maybe that's something that I have been observing. Maybe I picked up that habit, when I was 4 years old and watching the way my parents handled conflict, or the way my, teacher handled conflict, or whatever, or my big brother, my big sister. And I've been doing that so long, it just feels normal. But if I take a good hard look at it, it's like, that is not helping. That is not producing anything good. I might want to just put that tool down. Because tools, I like to use the metaphor of tools because they fit in a context. I have a chainsaw in my shed, which is about 10 meters away from me. I can actually see it through my window right here. I've got a chainsaw in there. And there's nothing wrong with that tool. That's an awesome chainsaw. Works really beautifully for cutting a big limb off of a tree. And that occasionally around here is totally necessary. And I get to feel like, quite manly doing that just quietly. But when I'm out pruning the garden, or if I am making dinner, my chainsaw is the wrong tool for that context. The tool is fine. It's where and when and how I use that thing. There is a time for direct communication, assertive, direct communication, and there is a time to just close your mouth. There is a time to just zip the lips and say nothing at all. And wisdom is about knowing which one to use at different times. So I'm calling this, what do I do with all this pain? And in the little subtext here, I don't know if this will make it on the title and the thing, but I've written here on my notes on my desk, which is like a whiteboard, which is quite cool. What do I do with all this pain? A wholehearted approach. And so what I experience in my life is that I experience something, I start to feel this pain well up. Maybe it's something somebody said to me. Maybe it's just something I've experienced that causes me to feel insignificant, or feel disrespected, or feel a lack of appreciation, or something, whatever, fill in the blank. And straight away, I start, your brain, your heart start going into overdrive as to how you respond to this stuff. I find that there's this very strong pull in these moments to disintegrate, because as of yesterday, I'm a 41-year-old man, right? I have responsibilities. Yes, yesterday was my birthday. It was awesome. Thanks. And I've got responsibilities. I can't just, throw my toys out the cot and throw a tantrum. Well, I could, but I don't want to do that. So there's this pull to disintegrate my reality where I basically, I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel any of those things. I want to be a mature, happy person. And so there's this pull in these moments to disintegrate my reality. Or maybe you're on the other end of the spectrum of disintegration, where you don't want to disintegrate from your feelings. You want to completely revel in your feelings and then disintegrate your life, say stuff that damages your relationships. So my tendency is to go into a hole and to try to pretend that I'm not feeling anything, and sort of, or put those feelings on a shelf and try to do my best to present myself like, no, everything's completely fine. And so that's my struggle. I have to resist that urge to disintegrate, to keep that wholeheartedness where my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions are lining up. So I'm calling this a wholehearted approach, because I've been down that track where you start managing the song and dance, where it's like your heart goes numb, and that's off in a box on a shelf somewhere, and you're presenting yourself in a certain way, and then you're usually medicating that way of functioning through something. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's whatever, drowning yourself in distraction, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever it is for you. I know what they are for me, and so you've got to medicate that. And so No, we don't want that. That's terrible for your relationships. You know, the people who love you need you to be integrated. They need you wholehearted. They need their experience of you to be one where they get to see your thoughts, your words, your feelings, your actions all lining up. And that's how the people who are close to you get to feel like they know you. And they can't trust you if they don't feel like they know you. And so you've got to do the work in being knowable. You've got to do the work in being able to be known by the people who want to know you, right? And that means occasionally when you are in pain or you do something that you're really ashamed of, and there's that urge to like disintegrate and manage the situation by sort of pulling these things apart. So this is what I'm going to walk you through, is something that I've learned. It has been incredibly helpful. I'm not a trained counselor. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to use any any cool lingo here. I'm really just telling you what has been incredibly helpful for me and the people that we walk with, journey with, mentor, coach, and help. This is, this stuff that the feedback we've had is that this stuff has been really helpful for others as well. Okay, so part one is stop the bleeding, right? So we've got, I'll tell you up front, these are the two parts. What do I do with all this pain? A wholehearted approach. Part one, stop the bleeding. Part two is get the healing, right? It literally didn't occur to me that those things kind of rhyme until this moment. So I apologize for the extreme cheesiness there. So we're diving into first things first, you got to stop the bleeding. I'm using that metaphor, and we use that a lot in our online courses and for our mentoring program that we run. It's this understanding when you are in a state of extreme pain, it's a little bit like a body, it's a little bit like if you're coming straight off the scene of a car crash and you're in the ambulance, right? And you are bleeding out. You've got, your life is hanging by a thread here. First things first, we got to stop the bleeding. We got to figure out how to it's not time for a massage with essential oils. It's not time for physiotherapy. It's time for stop the bleeding. Because the reason it sounds so obvious, but the reason we really emphasize this is that it's so helpful to be presently minded about this, because oftentimes the extremely trust damaging things that we do are usually, maybe not usually, but often are us responding with some kind of action in the midst of a huge amount of pain, right? And so we get proactive, maybe we react and say something. I've done this with my kids, where in a moment of frustration and I feel trapped, I feel powerless, I feel disrespected, rather than kind of, just take a step back, stop the bleeding, I lean in and I do something. And I react in the situation, and it's amazing how much trust in a relationship can be unraveled in one moment. It's just devastating when that kind of thing happens. And so it's really important. We go, okay, so first things first, I've got 4 things here under stop the bleeding. I try to keep this as practical as I can. Number 1, accept that I'm below the line. Okay, that's another little metaphor. And I'll tell you what I'm referencing there is a video that somebody sent us. So we were running a workshop and somebody sent us this YouTube link, said, hey, this is really helpful language for what you guys talk about. And we watched the video and now we play this video all the time. It's on YouTube. I don't even know what it's called. It's if you search on YouTube for above the line, below the line, I think I think the narrator clearly has an Australian accent, and so it's some kind of awesome Australian thing. So many amazing Australian things on planet Earth, just quietly. Very, very biased, totally in love with all things Australian. What was I getting on? Except that I'm below the line. Yes. So there's a video there. It talks about being above the line, below the line in your mental and emotional state, right? So it's recognizing in the first things first, I got to accept the fact that I'm below the line. What that means is I am my whole brain state. Again, I'm sure there's really awesome professional language to describe this stuff. I don't have it, but my brain state is I'm under threat, right? So it's realizing in this moment, and this is the thing, like I feel like I'm a pretty good person. Maybe you feel this way about yourself too. I don't think I'm awful. I tend to think fairly highly of myself. I'm, a little bit embarrassed to admit that, but I think most of us, if if we care to be honest, would probably admit the same. Like, I tend to think that I'm a pretty good person. I mean, I have my wrestles every once in a while with shame and even, little bouts of waves of self-hatred. I think that's normal on planet Earth as well. But for the most part, I feel like I'm a pretty good person. So quite often, so I'm experiencing pain and I feel like, no, I got this. I can, even though I feel, under threat, even though I'm feeling disrespected, I can ride above it and I can be kind. And you know what? I realized over the years, I might be a nice person, but I'm not that nice. I'm not that awesome. Like I have to accept sometimes I go below the line. And I love the way they describe that in the video. They talk about the fact that it is a completely natural and normal thing to occasionally go below the line as a response to the fact that life on planet Earth can be incredibly difficult, incredibly painful, incredibly stressful. There's something that's precious to you that's under threat. And I've just realized, I've just made peace with the fact that I really like feeling respected. And sometimes stuff happens and I feel that my need for feeling respected is totally under threat. And I don't even try to be bigger than that anymore. I just recognize, okay, I am tanking right now. I am going below the line, right? Cora and I, we went on this amazing trip together, and I won't go into it because I'm going to try to keep this episode as brief as I can. And if I start talking about it, and I'm already doing it now, if I start talking about it, I'll just want to talk about it for the next 20 minutes. So I'll resist the urge to do that. But on the way back from this trip, there was experiences in the trip that we did where we were there to serve a particular. We're there to serve this local Maori community up in the far north, and these incredibly significant events that were taking place a couple weeks ago. And there were dynamics that were stirred there. There was also some dynamics that had to do with other relationships that were completely unrelated to what we were going on there. Anyways, it all sort of melded in together to a conversation that we had. And let's just say the net result of this conversation, it was kind of just, I don't think Cora really, didn't really say or do anything awful. It's just sort of this combination of things brought to the surface some deep pain in my life. And hey, you know what? That is the wonder of a close relationship, is that it's supposed to put pressure on your wholeness as an individual. Like, where is my immaturity? So where is my brokenness? Where is my unresolved trauma? Where is all the difference between, current Matt and like perfect character Matt? Where is all of that gonna come to the surface and get exposed? It's going to come to the surface in my closest relationships, because that's what maturity is. That's what perfect character is the ability to love perfectly. So where is my lack of love going to show up? It's going to show up in the relationships where I have promised to love someone, and then I'm struggling to keep that promise, right? So that's what was going on in this moment, and really I was experiencing quite a lot of pain, and there was some feelings that I really didn't understand. I'm going, I didn't even know why you saying that has got me so flustered. There's something about that. So straight away, though, Cora and I've learned this a lot, to be able to just, first things first, accept that I'm below the line. I'm accepting the fact, here, I'll put it really, really simply. I'm accepting the fact that I am feeling under threat, and I am going to behave like someone who is under threat. What do you do if you are under threat? What if something is threatening you? What do? You protect yourself, right? That's just that automatic response, which is completely natural. You have if I'm diving, I'm going for I'm spearfishing, and I see a shark, and this happens, I see a shark coming towards me. What's going through my mind? I'm protecting my vital organs. I don't want to die. I don't want to get bit. I don't want this shark to steal my fish that I just shot with my spear gun. I'm in protection mode, right? And so when something takes place and I'm in pain and I go below the line, I expect, okay, I'm self-aware. I'm realizing I am going to act like a person who's under threat until I no longer feel under threat. And so that leads straight into our next point, number 2, which is identify who is in the blast radius / freeze out zone, right? And so if you are the type of person to typically react aggressively when you feel under threat, well, what important person in your life is in the blast zone? It's like I'm going below the line. I'm starting to experience a whole lot of pain. Who is in the blast radius? Who is likely to be affected? What person in my life that I really care about is likely to be affected by me being in self-preservation mode, and therefore is probably going to get a big, aggressive reaction or something like that? Or the freeze out zone. That's more my tendency, right? If you're more like me and your tendency, though I do occasionally, get angry and can get aggressive as well, but that's not my typical go-to. My typical go-to would be to freeze people out, right? And so I'm going, okay, I'm going below the line here. I'm accepting that. Who is in my freeze out zone? Who am I likely, what important person in my life could I potentially damage my connection with through my typical like freeze out tendency? Who is that? And I'm listing that out. I'm thinking through who is likely to be affected by this, and now I'm making a plan, right? So that brings me to point 3, right? So we've got accept that I'm below the line, number 1. Number 2, identify who is likely to be affected by this. Identify who's in the blast radius, who's in the freeze out zone. Because I've got to try to tap into that bigger version of me that doesn't want to damage my relationship with my kids. I don't want to damage my relationship with Cora. And I know that's where this goes if I'm not careful, because I'm aware on a bad day, I can be an incredibly hurtful person. And I recognize that about myself. And so when I go into that state, I'm going to try to do everything I possibly can to protect the people who are important to me from me. And that leads into our next point, which is number 3, which is determining your needs, right? So I've got to figure out what is it going to take for me to get back into a healthy state. And this puts pressure on you really knowing yourself, what works. For me, there's getting out in nature, jumping in the water, going for a surf, it can be extremely helpful for me. I wouldn't be able to unpack the psychology behind it. I don't know why it works. But in some ways, who cares why it works? It just works. Know that it works. That's the main thing. So, I might need some time alone. This has been a big one for me. I never really thought that I was the type of person. I never would have thought of myself as an introvert, but I've recognized the more I've gotten to know myself, the more I realize how helpful it is for me to get time alone. I need some time where I don't have anyone to respond to, because I'm a very responsive person in nature. I'm very attuned to what's taking place around me. I've got a really strong sense of what the people around me need from me. And I like serving people. I like accommodating people. I like making people happy. And so as long as I have people around me that I love, that I care about, that pressure is there. And when I'm feeling good, I love that pressure. It's great. But when I'm not feeling good, that can actually make it worse, so I need to get some space. Now, remember when we talk about what our needs are in that moment, right? Your first goal is to get yourself back to a point of peacefulness, because that's something that you got to take responsibility for. Is getting yourself back to, at least, ultimately you want to get back to being able to be joyful and fun to be around. But first things first, what would it take for me right now to at least get back to the point of peacefulness? And so, when Cor and I were driving back down from this trip, and I'm starting to feel I'm in a lot of pain, and it's like multiple different relationships that I'm kind of navigating, different, because it's never just, that relationship with that particular individual is never in a vacuum. It's immersed in a whole thread of other relationships and other dynamics that are going on all over the place. And so, there's often a lot to unpack. So I was dialing into the fact that, okay, so who's in the blast radius? I'm realizing, well, Cora is literally in the car with me. At this point, when we get home, my kids over the next few days, they're definitely going to be in the blast radius. If I'm not in a good space, or the freeze out zone, if I'm not in a good space, they're likely to be affected. My team, the people that I work with every day, if I'm not in a good space, they're likely to be impacted. So I'm thinking that through. Okay, what am I going to do about that? What are my needs? So I take a good look at it, and I'm asking myself the question: what would it take for me to get back to a point of peacefulness, at least? And I start thinking, I'm going, I need to get some time alone. I need to get some time alone, and ideally, I need to get some time alone in nature. That would even be better. Like if I could get out in the water, if I could, and I know that I need time to be able to. I have my iPad with my Apple Pencil, and I just start scribbling out my thoughts sort of in free flow, and this just works incredibly well for me. It's all sort of sits like a big tornado happening inside of my mind, inside of my heart, but something about getting thoughts down in writing into my little digital journal there. It just centers me, and I get clearer and clearer and clearer as I work my way through it, right? And so you're thinking through. Another really important question to ask is, can I continue to at least meet can I continue to at least fulfill, is the better word, my basic promises, my basic obligations, my basic responsibilities? Can I go to work tomorrow? Can I carry on here at work for the rest of the afternoon? Can I function at least? Because again, we're making the distinction. Ultimately you want to be in a place where you are just overflowing love onto the people around you. I want to be like that as a dad, as a husband. I want to just be overflowing love onto my family. Like I'm below the line, that is not going to happen. No chance at all. Like it's going to be a big enough effort for me to at least just to get back to a point of peacefulness. So I'm asking myself the question, can I fulfill, how bad is this? Can I fulfill my basic responsibilities? Can I at least show up in terms of making the lunch boxes, doing the trips to school, showing up for my team meeting, doing the coaching session that I have booked for tomorrow? Like, can I do those basic things? I know straight away I'm not going to be able to go beyond that. At the very best, I'm going to be able to just fulfill my basic responsibilities. And I'm looking through, is there anything there where I realize I actually know I'm not going to be able to fulfill a basic responsibility. I'm not going to be able to show up for Cora right now at home. I'm just not there, or I'm not going to be able to. And that's okay, but you got to own that. You got to own that. And if you go there, if you say to your boss, sorry, I'm out of here, can't work for the rest of the afternoon, or you say to your spouse, time out, I'm out of here, I'll see you in 2 days, or like, I'm just checking out and I'm telling you I'm not going to fulfill any of my responsibilities. Like, hey, I get it. If that's what you need to do, and then do it, but be aware there are two people in that relationship, and you are definitely going to damage trust by doing that. And you might think, hey, you know what? It is what it is. That's all I got. Okay, no worries. But just remember, you're putting it on the credit card, right? You're gonna have to circle back around and pay that at some point. You're definitely damaging the connection. When people do that with me, that's okay. I have grace for that. Somebody says, hey, I can't fulfill this promise. I'm not in a good space. I can't do it. And I go, hey, no problem. I understand. You get to be you. I get to be me. Thank you for the clarity. But I'm definitely not going to, I might, in that moment, if they're really that upset, I'm probably not going to say this. I'll probably just say, I get it, all good. But at some point, we're going to circle back around, and I'm not going to pretend that doesn't damage trust. I might say something like, hey, that's totally fine, but just, I need you to understand how that, can I tell you how that impacted me? Can I tell you what that did to my afternoon? Can I tell you what that did to my week? What my week looked like as a result of you not fulfilling that commitment? Not to punish you, but would you like to understand? And if they're going to go, yeah, I do want to understand, we're going to have to rebuild that. I'm going to have to say, I'm going to need you to work at building my confidence in this relationship, that you are taking better care of yourself so that kind of thing doesn't happen again, And so it's okay. I'm not going to punish you, but I'm also not going to pretend that isn't a trust damaging experience, a trust diminishing experience, right? So remember, in this relationship, there's two of us. You matter and I matter as well. And that creates a wonderful tension called love. And so I'm thinking that through. I'm determining what, my needs. And then last one, and we're going to bring it home with this, is I'm communicating where necessary, right? So I'm thinking through, okay, what's my communication strategy? Again, this circles back up to point 2, who's in the blast radius. It really helps to be able to just say, I might be letting my kids know, or I'm definitely letting Cora know. I might be letting my team know if I need, and I did actually on the, our next team meeting. I just said, hey guys, just want to be open with you that I've had a really hard few days, and I'm just recovering from that emotionally, working through it, learning through it, and I'm committed to getting back to the full 10 out of 10 version of who I am and who I want to be. I want to be someone who's fun to work with. I want to be, the best version of myself. I'm not there right now. And so I'm giving people understanding, because that's the thing. Nobody expects anybody else around them to be perfect. Remember, it's not pain that wrecks a relationship. Usually it's confusion. That's the real wrecking ball. If we can, because that's the if you go through something really painful, that can be healed. We can circle back around, and we can look at that together, and we can get a clear narrative, and we can say, I experienced this. This is how it caused me to feel. This is what I need from you to make this right. And we can work through those steps of healing and restitution and the rebuilding of trust. But confusion is just the total relationship killer, because it just makes it almost impossible to heal. Where do you even start? It's just, I don't get it. Where are you? Why did you do that? Why would you say that to me? Why? How could you possibly think that's okay? All these kind of things. It kind of we get so confused. And so we're learning to lean into the communication tools to say, hey guys, this is where I'm at. And, but people don't. I do this fairly frequently, at least several times a year. And I have never once had somebody close in my life look at me like, really? You had a hard time? Wow. Gross. You make me sick. Can't believe you have hard times. What's wrong with you? Nobody ever says that. People look at me like, I get it. I've had a hard time before too. I understand. Thank you so much for help. Thank you for letting me know, where you're at. That helps me to interpret your behavior. That helps me to interpret your actions. And that keeps me feeling clear in this relationship. I will treat you like someone who is working through something really painful. I get it. So that's communicate where necessary. So I had thought, like, I wasn't planning on doing this, but a few minutes before I started recording, I thought, maybe I'll just, just to get it, to like really drive the point home, I'm actually going to read you the text that I wrote to Cora on the back of this experience, and particularly just to highlight my process, and because it was just so helpful. It's I just have found this person. Oh, so then we're not even into the part 2 get healing yet, but this lays a foundation for the get healing part, and it just sort of it protects. I always come back to this metaphor of the surgery room, right? Because when the body is bleeding out, when the body is under major threat of injury has been sustained, you get that body into the safest position you possibly can. You wheel it into the operating theater, and everybody's got masks on and gloves, and no one is allowed in there who isn't supposed to be in there. You get as safe an environment as you possibly can to be able to navigate that. And side note, when you're going through something pain, if you want to restore the connection, like blasting all of your feelings about the situation publicly on social media. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely time where things need to be stated publicly for all kinds of different reasons. But I'm talking about like you and an individual, or you and one or two other individuals, and you've gone through something painful, and it's just a thought. Maybe telling the entire world about your pain with that individual, it might not help. Okay. So you want to get that into the safest situation possible. And that's why we function, a part of why we function in community. We function in family, we function in team. This is where, wise, healthy leadership is really necessary, is at times, we need to be able to lean into a protective, when my son Levi needed surgery, broke his arm in 3 different places at one time, and he had to get rushed into surgery. Like I needed leadership in that moment. I needed the leadership of the hospital. I imagine if I showed up and they were like, "What do you think we should do?" I'd be going, "I know. What do you mean? You're supposed to be I need to feel safe here. Like me and my son are, we need some shelter here. We need to be covered. We need some shelter." And I'm so grateful to live in, Aotearoa, New Zealand, where our experiences in the hospital, unfortunately, our experiences in the hospital have been many, and they've all been very positive, as we need that sheltered space. And so, if you want to have healthy relationships, this is a side note, throw this one in, freebie. You're going to make sure you are functioning within some degree of communal structure, because you're thinking through, and this is where modern life can just feel like the Wild West. What's the plan? Not if you go through painful things in your relationships, but when, who's there. It doesn't have to be some kind of actual institution. I'm not necessarily saying that, It could just be something organic. It could be you have a particular uncle or a particular big brother or a big sister figure in your life, or a particular, someone who acts as a guide and who's there to support you, and who can help you walk through difficult things that take place and provide a sense of covering, or maybe it's your counselor or something, but make sure you have some kind of action plan, because stuff is going to go down, right? So here's the text that I wrote to Cora, just as an example. This is probably as vulnerable as I've ever gotten on a podcast, but I'm feeling good about it. I say that to highlight the fact that I definitely had no intention when I was writing this text of ever showing this to the world. Hi, darling. I'm thinking through what are my needs. There was something that we were possibly supposed to go to together that night. It wasn't like a really important thing. It was just kind of a loose thing, but we were going to go. I say, hi, darling. I don't think it would be good for me to push myself to be at the event tonight. I'm still feeling very raw, and I need as much time alone as I can get at the moment. I'm finding that time alone with Jesus, that's a big one in my life, right? Again, that's that journaling thing. I'm journaling my conversation with Jesus. Whatever that looks like for you, go for it. I'm finding that time alone with Jesus is helping me work through things and recover. I'm happy to hang back, I'm making sure I've got certain responsibilities. I'm happy to hang back and anchor things here with Shiloh. That's our 6-year-old. So that you can go. And then I say, thanks for being kind and patient with me while I've been so distant for the last few days. I love you very much, and I am totally committed to being completely open with you eventually. Currently, I don't feel very safe, and because of that, I'm scared I will say mean things that will hurt you, which I really, really don't want to do, right? So I'm giving her as much of a view into my heart, into my world, so as to hopefully just ease her anxieties. I'm not ghosting her. I don't hate her. I'm letting her know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not giving her the full thing yet, because I don't even know the full thing yet. I don't even know everything that I'm experiencing emotionally. If I'd even tried, it would probably come out all weird and inaccurate and maybe mean, right? So I'm telling her what's going on as much as I can. I can't offer you much intimacy right now, but I'm talking about emotional intimacy, mostly, though, intimacy comes in all kinds of wonderful forms. I can't offer you much intimacy right now, but I'm still totally here to partner with you in taking care of our lives together. Please keep letting me know what you need in that regard. I love you. So I'm letting her know, I'm right there. If I can get some time alone, I'll be able to be right there at neutral. I'm probably not going to be my usual jovial self, but I've got enough in the tank to be able to fulfill my commitments, because she's going to be wondering. If I don't send this text, she's going to be wondering, like, okay, you're clearly not doing well. Are you about to disappear? Can I count on you? Can I rely on you? That's the question going on in her mind, and I'm letting her know in this particular case, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I probably won't have much more than that, than the basic fulfilling what needs to be done, but I'm reassuring you I can do that, And so she responded something totally lovely and gracious and kind and absolutely stellar. And then about 2 days later, I had some awesome breakthrough of clarity, and it actually has led and is leading to us deepening our connection in a super awesome way. Okay, so there you go. What do I do with all this pain? Part 1, a wholehearted approach. That would stop the bleeding. We're going to wrap it up there. And next one is part 2, getting the healing. See you, friends.
We hope you found the conversation and stories on today's podcast helpful and insightful. If you want to go deeper, Restoring Connections offers online courses that cover key topics like personal responsibility, proactive care, powerful communication, and healthy boundaries. Go to www.restoringconnections.nz for more information. This podcast is funded by generous supporters from all over the world. please consider supporting by going to the Restoring Connections website and hitting the Contribute button. By partnering with us, you're helping to provide mentoring, workshops and training to others who are also restoring their connections.